Hello and welcome to series 2, episode 4 of the Authentic Soap podcast. And you might have heard a bit of really terrible whistling there at the start from myself. And that song is actually called I Got You Babe by Sonny and Cher. And it would have been nice, obviously, to play a little bit of the faded in of the real song. But unfortunately, I don't have the copyright to play that. So you had to, unfortunately, be subjected to my terrible whistling. Now, that song itself is actually in the film Groundhog Day, a real classic from 1993, early 90s classic. And basically, Groundhog Day, the film itself was about a very kind of sort of egotistical, obnoxious kind of weatherman who goes to this little town every year where they have it's Groundhog Day. I think it's February the 2nd, or early February anyway, and something along the lines of the townspeople, they release this little rodent out of a hatch or some sort of a contraption, and depending on the way it comes out or something along those lines, it sort of depicts when winter will end and spring will begin. Now it's a really clever film because he gets up at 6 in the morning with "I Got You Babe" by Sonny and Cher, and goes through the day, meets these various characters and people, goes and does his report as a weatherman at the scene where they're releasing the rodent, and then the next morning he wakes up, and it's the exact same day again. 6 o'clock, the alarm goes off. "I Got You Babe's" on again. The annoying guy in the hotel room, the little sort of maid at the bottom of the sort of restaurant area, if you like, breakfast area. And then he goes out and he meets his old school friend, this really irritating guy called Ned Ryerson. So Ned was a typical sort of geek. All these American films, a lot of the American dramas always tend to have a sort of nerdy, geeky character, and he was that character in Groundhog Day. So really, the way it goes, I mean, Bill Murray's character, every morning he gets up at 6 a.m. It's "I Got You Babe." It's the same stuff happening day in, day out. And obviously, he gets really freaked out and, angry and what's going on. He starts to do really negative things, getting in trouble with the law because he knows he wakes up the next day and, it's back to the same day. So it's this time loop. A really clever and funny film. But cut a long story short, eventually he comes to a position where I feel he just sort of accepts it and surrenders. Then eventually things start to change and he becomes positive and he starts to get to know all the townspeople because every day he's reliving the same people, same movements, same conversations. So he's able to manipulate it and be really positive. And at the end, he's a bit of a legend. But obviously, it's a good film, so you get the chance to go and see it. But I think this current situation with coronavirus and lockdown, it is a wee bit like Groundhog Day because, especially if you're at home, you're getting up and you're going through the same routine, and probably in many respects you're going through the motions really a little bit. Now I know for myself, I was up walking in the park a few days there during the week, and I actually seen this girl who was just sat on the bench at the same time, probably like the way I was, but you're seeing the same people walking dogs. You're seeing this Downing Street briefing at 5 o'clock. It really does start to feel like Groundhog Day. And for me, personally, I know we're about 3.5 weeks, almost 4 weeks into the lockdown. It's very difficult within that 4 weeks to kind of pinpoint a specific moment that you can remember. Obviously, with daily normal life, you're going out, you're going to cinema, you're going to pubs, you're meeting people, you're doing things, you're going to work. You might be going to other offices. You might be doing other things. You're always doing something a little bit different. And it's easy to look back and have that wee bit of a marker and say, oh, yes, I remember on that day I done this. Or, I remember on this day this happened. And I think at the moment it's actually quite difficult to pinpoint like a moment where you've had something memorable. So you're looking back and thinking, okay, there's always, for me, there is a few things. But I mean, generally, there's not, each day is very much the same, and you can't really think back and say to yourself, oh, I remember Wednesday 2 weeks ago I was here. Um, Now, you would think that this Groundhog Day sort of syndrome feeling would make things seem longer. And maybe it does for you. I mean, let me know if it does. But for me, the last 4 weeks has just been a complete blur. And time seems to have passed so quick in a way that it's difficult to kind of comprehend, and almost like time has speeded up. I can't remember like a 4 week period where I felt that it's went in a complete whiz. Now I think that's probably down to the fact that there's no markers, there's no real milestones, there's no real memorable events. So it's very difficult to kind of almost get your bearings. It's almost like you're a bit discombobulated. Maybe we just need the compass of the normal structures of life to keep our orientation in check. So again, I mean, I'm sure other people might be having different experiences, but for me, it is very much like a kind of Groundhog Day type scenario. Now, obviously, Bill Murray's character in the film, he eventually surrendered and things started to work out for him. Now, that situation in the time loop in the film, it was a fantasy drama, obviously, but it's slightly different here in reality, whatever reality actually is. I mean, reality is just each individual's human mind, egoic perception. So we all have different realities, we all have different perceptions, but I mean, it is how we feel. And I think really, if you kind of do surrender. Now, I've had moments of surrendering, and when I say surrendering, I mean kind of being present and just being in the present moment. If you surrender, it does kind of make things a little bit easier. Now, obviously, it's a challenging situation. People might be out of work, dealing with kids at home. There's all sorts of stress, so it's very difficult to kind of feel presence. But I mean, I find it difficult too. But on occasions, there has been moments where I have felt that kind of sense of presence. Now, I spoke about this on my other podcasts, obviously about the benefits of meditation, of course, to help you get into the present moment. But also, a lot of spiritual teachers will also say, your external environment doesn't necessarily affect your happiness. It's down to you. It's your thoughts about the situation, and in many respects, that's right. Because people could be in really negative situations, but their mind is strong and they just get on with it, and they're very, very stoic. Now, for me, like, obviously, if external circumstances are difficult, it's hard to kind of always be positive, and I spoke before in the previous podcasts about these constructs of life and society, like the economy, like all the services we see around us, and then it's once that kind of is obliterated, it's very, very disconcerting, and it just makes you realize how much these are distractions, effectively. So most of us can't simply sit and be. We find it difficult just to be with our thoughts, be on our own. We're constantly distracted. There's a whole industry out of human mind distraction, if you like. So, it's very hard to turn around and say, if the external circumstances, no matter how bad they are, you can still find it within yourself. But I guess that's the challenge for us. So I know there's a chip shop near me, and it's just reopened recently. It's a good chippy, and it's got like neon light signs out of it. I love neon lights, so I remember seeing that. It gave me a little bit of a boost just to see something opened again. So maybe in a few weeks, maybe if coffee shops or restaurants with social distance, and if they start to open, it might be actually quite nice, and might maybe give everyone a bit of a tonic that things are starting to improve. But it still does come down to your inner thoughts and your inner feeling. So there's plenty of millionaires, and there's plenty of people who on the surface have made it, but inside they're deeply miserable. I mean, that's so common. You hear that all the time I watch a lot of podcasts and different things, and counsellors speak about this and other people speak about it. You've read about celebrities. They've had everything they want, but in reality, none of it makes them happy anyway. So external situation, it can definitely, assist you to lead a positive life, but this probably is a good chance to work on the internal stuff. Some last podcast, if you remember, I quoted out of or paraphrased out of the Daily Stoic, which is a book by Rand Holiday and Stephen Hanselman, which they kind of touch on quotes from Stoic philosophers back in the day, and then they give their little synopsis on how that relates to modern life. Really good book, worth probably buying. It has a quote for each day of the year and then a synopsis, so it's basically 366 meditations. And it says in the book, 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. So the art of living, I mean, what is the art of living? I don't know. I mean, I'd love to know. I think, again, it probably just comes down to our own perception. Everybody's art of living is different, and so find your own art of living, maybe. But anyway, so just a quote here on the source of your anxiety. So people probably feel a bit of stress and anxiety in the lockdown situation. So this is a quote from Epictetus from Discourses. It says, "When I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want? For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their own control, why would they be stricken by anxiety?" So basically saying, if you're looking something outside of your own control, why would you be stricken by anxiety? So this situation's out of a lot of our control. So really, that's probably a good quote. Just saying, so if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their own control, why would they be stricken by anxiety? So it's accepting those kind of limitations of what you can control. Another little quote here, this last one I'll finish on. So it says, this one is, "Fear is a self-fulfilling prophecy." So no fear, we all kind of suffer from fear, and fear is the root of a lot of negativity. It really, really is. If love is the root of a lot of positivity, then fear is the root of a lot of negativity. So fear is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and this is from Seneca, from Oedipus, and it says, "Many are harmed by fear itself, and many may have come to their fate while dreading fate." So many are harmed by fear itself, and many may have come to their fate while dreading fate. Now that quote resonated with me, because sometimes I know I worry about things, and then when they actually come round, they were never as bad as my mind kind of thought. And I'm starting to learn that, but it's a wee bit like that anticipatory anxiety, isn't it? And again, people are probably feeling fear because of the uncertainty, but as that quote says, many have come to their fate while dreading fate. So if you're dreading a bad outcome from the situation, then it might manifest as negativity. Whereas you've kind of just embraced the uncertainty and just surrender and let it go, then it might manifest more positively for you. So hope you enjoyed that short podcast. Couple of words of wisdom from different people included in there. I'm recording it in a slightly different location, so I don't know if the sound is a bit different. It might be a wee bit echoey. I'm just trying it out anyway. But anyway, if you have any thoughts or comments, just put them in the link, and we'll speak again soon. All the best.